Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode of the ISHR Perspectives podcast, the podcast where we try to bring views from different stakeholders at the International School Hanover region to the table. In this episode, we'll be discussing community welfare at ISHR. Today, I am joined by three wonderful guests. Our first guest is Mr. Parkin-Haig. Would you mind introducing yourself quickly?
Thank you, Nicholas. My name is Julian Parkin-Haig. I'm grade level leader for grade 10 and also deputy designated safeguarding lead. I teach geography and individuals and societies, and it's my third year at ISHR.
Our next guest is Ms. Schurzig. Ms. Schurzig, would you mind introducing yourself briefly?
Sure. Hi, my name is Christina Schurzig. I'm the educational psychologist here at ISHR. I work the whole school, so kindergarten through 12th grade, and this is my start of my 13th year at the school.
A long time. Then we have Victoria.
Hi, my name is Victoria Stena. I'm a 10th grader, and I only joined the school this spring, so I'm a new student, fairly. And I was born and raised in Russia.
Very interesting. Okay, let's quick it up with a nice and easy question for Mr. Parkin-Haig.
Sure.
What does community mean for you, especially within a school context?
Okay, at its very heart, I really believe that community is this sense of belonging that we have, and it's something that you are part of, and it's somewhere that you're part of. And sometimes belonging is tribal, but often it's instinctive as well. And I really feel that everyone has a place to be and wants to explore their ideas and think about the tribe that they belong to is really important to them. And it helps give them a sense of who they are and their place in the world. And I really believe that if you have that sense of belonging, you can be happy. And we all know that children who are happy can learn. And without that happiness, there's a moment where you're just a bit uncertain as to who you are and your place in the community. One of my educational heroes was Sir Ken Robinson, and he said, "You don't grow into creativity, we grow out of it. In fact, students are educated out of it." And something I love about ISHR is that we foster this sense of wonder. And I think that's really important for an IB education, that we can have this sense of what comes next and where is my place in society. And that's, to me, what community is.
Very interesting. And talking about community, like what does the school do to support students in getting integrated quickly into the school and feeling well at school, feeling welcome? Maybe you want to elaborate on that, Ms. Schurzig?
Sure. Well, when a student first joins, and actually we were just talking about this before the podcast started. Yeah. When a student first joins, someone in the counseling team is usually notified just to come meet the student on their first day or on the days they're visiting, to already have a friendly face and someone that they know and can greet. We try to match them up with another student in their grade level. So again, they have a friendly face, someone to eat lunch with, spend breaks with, things like that. And just try to get the student feeling as connected with others and as comfortable as possible. I hope that was the case with you.
Oh yeah, 100%. I was so grateful and still am to. I just remember when I had my first 3 trial days, like 2 weeks before coming to the school, I was matched with a student in my grade, and that, I feel like, comparing to my previous experiences in several schools in Russia that I've changed, felt so different, because I used to feel really isolated on like first days of schools because I felt really unwelcomed, and here it was already like, oh, I have a student that I know who guides me through the school. Then there's like a bunch of friends of that student that are also, I get to sit at their lunch table. I'm like, oh, I feel included. So that's really nice. Yeah, it was really unusual for me coming from a more, I guess, I don't want to say ignorant, but a system where that wasn't prioritized for newcomers. So yeah, 100%, yeah.
I remember your days when you came around, and you had there was a certain vibrancy about you because you connected really very, very quickly with the students who were showing you around. And it was just really good to see.
I remember meeting you the first time. I asked you where the drama room was. In the, like, I think it was do you remember?
I walked you to it. That's right. Yeah, I remember.
I also remember meeting you. Thank you.
Good, yeah.
All right, that's a very nice insight, personal insight. And Mr. Parkin-Haig, as since you're the grade 10 grade level leader, what kind of frameworks are in place? I know there's like advisory groups, right? Grade level, like talk us through that. Like, how does that kind of work?
Sure. I mean, I think my goal for my students in grade 10 is to make sure they feel valued in the school. And we do that through various means. We have a very strong advisory set of teachers, and they meet them every day. And so they have advisory 3 times a week, and they have study hall twice a week. And the whole idea is that the advisor gets to know their students, their group, really so well that they can understand where they're coming from academically, where they're coming from emotionally, and give them that support as a sort of first line of advice and support through the school system. And of course, that marries with all the other places in the school where students can get their support. But it's a really close-knit team. I really enjoy working with my advisors, and I can see the goodness that they bring to each of the different classes and the way they are really getting to know their students.
Okay, and I believe after you like reach out to an advisor for some kind of, whether it's mental health or academic problem, there's also some other frameworks, right, Ms. Schurzig? Maybe you want to talk about those?
Sure. One of the things I forgot to mention in introducing myself was that I'm also head of the WSST, which stands for Whole School Support Team. And that team is comprised of both learning enrichment teachers, so teachers for students who maybe need a little bit of extra academic support, and also our counseling team. And so as a team altogether, we are the next port of call if a student is having either an academic or social, emotional, mental health difficulty. So yeah, their advisors and grade level leaders or a trusted teacher are sort of their first point of call. And then if that teacher or if that advisor feels like they need more support or feels like the student has needs that maybe could be met in other ways through counseling or through learning enrichment intervention, then they reach out to our team and we come together, talk it through, and talk about ways that we can support students.
Yeah, and Victoria, maybe you wanna maybe tell us a bit, like, how has your experience been, like, coming? I mean, you've mentioned coming new to our school, and like, how do you feel? How available are these things to you? How have you perceived this whole like structure support?
Yeah. As I've said, I think there's a huge contrast for me, like comparing this school to my previous ones, and that were all part of like the Russian curriculum system, because I find the fact that there is counseling available in general so insane, because of course there were talks about mental health in Russian schools, but they were not prioritized at all whatsoever. Maybe we had just like a formal talk about it once a year and that's it. And then here, for example, I found myself very stressed during the beginning of this academic year because of my social situation, just like academics, and just being stressed out, as one usually does. And there being a counseling team available, that made it so much easier for me to handle tasks and relationships. And so I find that, first of all, it's extremely available because like literally on the first week, it was announced that there is a counseling team available for those who didn't know. And second of all, there's so many welcoming and just amazing teachers at our school that you can come to talk to, I feel like even if they're not a part of the team. Mm-hmm. For example, like Miss C for me is a very comfort teacher that I could come to and just talk my heart out, literally. And I'm sure for a lot of people and students at the school, they have their own teachers that are a safe place for them as well. So like very available, yeah.
I think that's a wonderful thing about our school too,
Yeah,
is that
100%.
Other schools I've worked in, it's very much a silo, excuse me, that like the counseling team does their job and that each person does their own job. And I think here, all of our teachers are very caring and available to meet with students
100%,
and be there for them.
Yeah, that's very unusual for me as well, because in Russia I was used to most of the teachers, being very cold towards students. Like I came here, I did my job, and I went home, and it's a huge contrast, as I've said, and it's really nice.
I think our pastoral care is really strong in this school, and there are so many instances of check-ins that we do at various levels, with all the grade levels. And I think that gives you that sense of safety and happiness,
Definitely,
I think, as well, because you know that support system's there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what the issue is. It can be the smallest thing that might be on your mind, or something really big that's happening at home or in your social life.
Yeah.
You can bring it to us and avail yourself of the counselling services, the educational psychologists, the grade level leader, the advisors, or as I say, a trusted teacher. and we are here for you. And that's what I love about this school. It's really important.
And I remember, Mr. Parkin-Haig, you talked about this triangle.
Yeah.
Would you mind telling us more about that? Like, because
Yeah,
there's a school, right? There's students.
Yeah.
And then there's a third party we haven't talked about yet.
The triangle's just really vital in the care that we give our students. And it's to do with home, the student, and obviously the teachers, the school here. And that triangle, if one side falls down, then we can't possibly give that student the best care that we'd like to. So it's really important that the discussion, the dialogue, the communication between home and school and the student is open and transparent and fair and honest. And that's what we try to do at ISHR as best we can. Now, sometimes the triangle does collapse a little bit, but it's about rebuilding that faith that we have in each other and just keeping the lines of communication open. It's really important.
Yeah, and maybe just some nice practical tips we could give the listeners right now about like how to balance schoolwork, because I know I mean I'm a 12th grader myself, gets a lot. You have to do a bunch of things. How do you recommend students balance their mental health and while keeping up schoolwork the best? Maybe Schurzig, you have a few tips?
Sure. Well, one thing, students can start attending our learning labs that we're offering this year. Or they've been offered in the past, but we're in a much more structured way this year. So every lunch period, so secondary lunch, we'll be offering learning labs on various different topics. We're going to run time management and organization for a number of weeks. And then Ms. Lee is going to be doing structuring essays and paraphrasing, things like that. Ms. Axenbeck and Mr. Kidani and I are going to do the time management and organization for a while to hopefully catch as many students as possible. And within those learning labs, we talk about how to balance your time in order to avoid, because I heard you say a couple of times like that you're so stressed and
Oh yeah.
and you in grade 12, but how to hopefully avoid the too much stress. A little stress is okay. It keeps you alert and keeps you focused, but too much stress leads to feeling burned out and not being productive. So helping students find that balance. And I think with the balance, it has to be, making sure you have time for friends and time for your leisure activities, the things you like to do. Whenever I hear a student say that they've quit jogging or quit soccer or quit whatever their thing is, that's where we start is, okay, let's look at your schedule, let's look at when you need to study, the different things that you have coming up, and then how can we, get whatever your favorite activity is back in there, and also time with friends and time with your family, because that balance is really so important to keeping stress at a good level and at an alert level. So.
I totally agree. I think work-life balance we talk about a lot as adults, but it's pertinent for students as well. And you need to have downtime. That's so important, because if you're not refreshed, you can't work to the best of your ability. And your brain just gets crowded. And I feel that as an adult. So I can imagine for you going to 6 lessons every day, some of you, that every day, every week, that's a lot to take in. For me, I think it's to instill this sense of organization. That's important, really important for grade 10 students as they're going to be moving into the diploma. And I love an idiom, but fail to plan, plan to fail. If you don't organize what you're doing ahead of time, then chances are you're going to get more anxious about it because you haven't got that direction in mind. And I just think that's really, really important that we give our students the toolkit to be able to take away as much of the organization and get that sorted before they are actually even thinking about the content of what they're learning. So it is stressful, and there are times of anxiety, but there are things that students can do, and I think we try to bring them along on that journey as best we can.
I think it's so nice that, as you've mentioned, there are things like that being offered at our school, because I find that a lot of schools, because once again, I've been in a lot of different schools, a lot of schools just happen to expect from students that they do know how to time manage, how to manage their time, how to balance it all out. But it's like, a good question is, how are we supposed to know that if we're used to not doing so much, and then there's this drastic change in like the last few years of high school, and we're just supposed to know how to do that. And I think a lot of people don't. So that being offered is so nice, I feel like.
But I think this is the key that you're mentioning, and it's all about communication.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that 95% of problems in the world can be solved with really good communication.
Yeah.
And the communication between the teacher and the student is vital, and that can take away some of your anxiety and some of the pressures that you're feeling, because then you're clear about what's going forward, and so is the teacher. And I think when a student buries his or her head in the sand and just starts to deny what's going on, that ramps up the anxiety. I would rather a student come to me and say, look, I'm not going to meet your deadline because of X, Y, and Z. Can we talk about it?
Yeah.
And then there's a conversation to be had. And then I'm really happy with that. I think it's when the anxiety overtakes someone and they can't see the way out of the room. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I always encourage students to ask for help and let us help you, because there's such a wide net of support here with, again, the counseling team. It's myself and Miss Fernandez, Miss Rebecca, then your advisor, your grade level leader, IB coordinator. There's Mr. Lowe, Mr. Becker-Hounslow. There's so many people here to support you and to be that net when things start to fall apart or start to sort of go sideways. There's a lot of people here willing and able and enthusiastic about helping students get back on track.
And we want everyone to succeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
absolutely.
would you agree? Have you felt this or found that to be true?
I can really only stress the point that Victoria was talking about earlier, was that the teachers are just so like caring and they're open to talk to you, and you know that the counseling team is there. And I think even before the counseling team, because sometimes that might be like a step you want to take, but you can always just on the way out of class, just talk to your teacher, just same like quick chat, 2 minutes. And I think that's just really supportive of my mental health. I mean, I can tell you, Miss Lee, she's always there for everyone. She's such a kind like heart. And I felt like just reaching out to someone and talking to them about what's on your mind can really like ease that pressure. And I think someone who's not your parent and maybe not your friend who may be involved in whatever, who you can talk to about this whole thing is super, super helpful for me.
Yeah. 100%, yeah. I think I found that in some situations, for example, and a lot of my friends has talked about this as well, is like, just like say you're just in an argument with your parents or something, you have no one to go to like talk about this. And I find like a lot of people talk to their teachers, like their comfort teachers, about that stuff, and it helps a lot for sure. And not even that was just an example, right? So yeah, I definitely agree.
Okay. Are there any points you think you would have liked us to touch upon in this episode that we haven't yet? Any?
I think I didn't mention it. We keep talking about counseling, and I should also say that our counseling services are confidential. So what happens in there stays in there, with a few caveats. But if you come to counseling, we can explain those, what the bounds of confidentiality are. But I think our teachers are also I know our teachers are also very, very respectful of that, and our grade level leaders are very respectful. If a student is with us, or if they see a student going down the hall to our offices, I think our students in general are very respectful of counseling services and it being confidential, and our teachers as well. So if anyone has worries about who's going to know or who's going to ask where I've been or what was my teacher going to say if I've missed a few minutes of class or anything like that, I think on the whole people are respectful of everyone's privacy.
I think I'd say our safeguarding is a real strength of the school as well. Trying to do our best to protect our students physically and emotionally. And we have good processes in place and procedures and good support network. And we spend the right amount of time talking about the students and what's going on in their lives with the right people. And I think that's really important. And we have very good training for our staff as well. but also students know where they can come to if they need to disclose something. And I think that's a real strength of our school.
Okay, well then I'd just like to end it off with a nice question I like to ask during every episode, which is, what is your favorite place or thing to do in Hanover? Mr. Parkin-Haig, you want to start us off real quick?
I love the market in Linden on a Saturday morning. It's really vibrant. It reminds me of markets in Melbourne in Australia. So that's one of my favorite places. My favorite thing to do, I'm slightly schnitzel obsessed. And I have a schnitzel carter, and I've ranked all the schnitzel restaurants that I've been to in Hannover. And I particularly like the Kaisergestätte, which is in Herrenhausen, and probably second would be the Hofgeflüster in the Ballhofplatz, right in the Mitte. So that's my little obsession.
I'm going to need you to tell me that after.
I will.
So that I write it down, yeah.
It's really good.
Okay, this was a hard question, actually. I think it's a very boring answer, but I think probably my favorite thing to do is to be in the Einriede and just, at different times of year and how the forest changes and, the people that in my neighborhood that I run into, again, part of that belonging and feeling of community. I think that's my favorite part of Hanover, and my favorite thing to do is just to be there in the forest.
Wow, I feel like my answer is going to be so basic and boring because it's like a very teenage-like answer, I guess, but I really like Espresso House at Hauptbahnhof because that's the only place we spend time after school at with my friends. The deepest secrets has been shared there. It's just such a special place, and also their matcha is amazing. So make sure to check that out if you like matcha.
Well, thank you all for listening to this episode of the ISHR Perspectives podcast. I hope you tune in next time, and we'll see you then. Bye.